second episode of the special feature series called Reshaping the Transport Industry. This series leads up to the Mahindra Transport Excellence Awards 2013, which felicitates the unsung heroes of the transport industry. In the first episode, we focused on three key segments, namely finished metals, cement and automotives. In the second episode today, we will look at three more segments, namely EXIM containers, commercial vehicle financiers and fleet drivers, highway mechanics and highway dhabas. Let's take a look at the EXIM container segment.
Ships are the oldest and most efficient mode of cargo transport in the world. India has a coastline which stretches over 7,500 kilometers and is serviced by 13 major and 187 minor and intermediate ports. 95% of India's foreign trade takes place from these ports. They have a crucial role in the world's container trade. Due to this large volume of trade which happens through the ports in our country, the role of EXIM container transport companies becomes even more vital. Their vehicles carry all the goods from the port to their respective destinations all across the country and also carry all the goods to be exported to the ports.
The transporters where they really get stuck is they don't get the backhauling, which means the reverse logistics is for a toss, and from A to B when they want to transport. So they transport the truck from A zone to B zone with a fully loaded truck, and on the return backhauling they don't get a load. So the planning should be in such a way that they should also always get a backhaul, which means reverse logistics. So the cost could be more competitive and you can reduce cost per tonnage kilometer. So this is from that point of view. And transporters should be more organized rather. Of course, there are some companies which are more organized, but there is a requirement to be more organized so that it can work out more professional well. As far as, so then the pricing could be fixed little bit much more, the cost could be fixed, could be less more, the cost per tonnage kilometer could be very less and the price could be given more competitive.
I believe uniformity in diesel prices is one thing which we are looking at, because the difference between diesel price in one state and other state is almost about 6 to 7 rupees. And secondly, the toll charges. The toll charges are going up day by day to such an extent that it has become difficult to operate. For example, the diesel prices in Maharashtra are about 55, 56 rupees, whereas in Delhi it is to Gujarat is at a loss as compared to his counterpart in Delhi.
Even though these limitations prevail in the EXIM container segment, there are huge opportunities of growth present as well. The cargo traffic in India is expected to increase by 4% each year. Also, with the government's keen interest in expansion of ports and huge investments in coastal shipping, freight movement will definitely get a huge boost. This, along with heavy investments in the infrastructure sector by the government, will act as a catalyst for the EXIM container transporting companies.
I don't know if it's a coincidence or not that it's happening now, but it's in the last 1 month I've actually seen an up in demand. And normally what they say in any economy is the first area that you normally see the growth is in the import or export of cargo. And export wasn't so badly off because as usual the rupee has been quite weak against the dollar. But the import was very bad. So a port like Chennai was down about 35%. And that first reflects on us because suddenly I see 10 vehicles standing in my shed with no loads. In the last month and a half or so, customers who actually would take other facilities of mine like maybe customs clearance or warehousing, but would do the transport themselves, actually have been coming back to me and asking for the transportation as well, because obviously then I understand there's a shortage of trucks in the market. So I'm optimistic about it. I'm quite optimistic about the future. Saying that, Europe I don't think is going to kind of improve in the next 18 months to 24 months. So I think it's going to be the innovativeness or the enterprise of the Indian businessman looking for alternate markets apart from Europe. That will actually keep the wheels going. But obviously, technically, the domestic market never sees a downturn because we still have 1.2 billion people and they have to be fed and they have demands and the purchases. So I think we are in good shape, not too bad. But it could get far better.
India being a very important manufacturing hub globally, our exports will continue to grow. And because we promote exports, our imports will also continue to grow. If you look at the trade balance in terms of the container equipment, India is one of those countries where there is a good trade balance of import and export. We are not one of those countries where there is a excess inventory or a deficit inventory. So we are a very balanced nation, balanced country in terms of the equipment inventory situation. And so the movement to and from the port will always be balanced. So I look at this as an opportunity.
So that was the EXIM container segment. It's time now for a short break, but on the other side we focus on the commercial vehicle financiers. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You are still watching Reshaping the Transport Industry. Let's now take a look at a very important segment, namely the commercial vehicle financiers.
Roads are the main mode of transportation in India and handle 65% of India's total freight movement. Trucking is the #1 form of road transportation in India. A truck normally would cost anything between 30 lakhs to 40 lakhs. It's a huge investment for the transporters who have to maintain anything from 10 to 1,000 vehicles depending on the size of their business. This is where commercial vehicle financiers become so important. And understanding this huge scope, many banks and other non-banking financial companies have entered this sector and are trying to create a niche for themselves.
See, strategically, we normally look at a sector which is, owner less than 5 vehicles. We are not really in the heavy fleet owner segment, because we believe that the heavy fleet owner always has the ability to borrow from the banking system and not necessarily will come back to an NBFC. Two is, as an organization, we are focused much beyond the metro market, which is where the possibility or an opportunity to work with 1 truck, 2 truck, 3 truck operators. So one of the criteria is we look at people who buy truck for the first time, whether it's LCV or heavy, people who attach vehicles to maybe contractors or fleet operators and get their money in. So therefore we look at those kind of segment to look at even driver owner kind of a situation, right? So those are the basic criteria.
HDFC Bank is a leading player and a leading bank in funding end-to-end solution to the transporters. And we are a valuable partner in the value chain, entire value chain, involving manufacturer, dealer and customers. Okay. Thirdly, we operate out of more than 3,200 branches all across the country. HDFC Bank offers funding for entire range of commercial vehicle, from half a ton small commercial vehicle to 49-ton tractor trailer, both in passenger as well as goods segment.
In IndusInd Bank, we have classified customers into 3 different categories. One is the entry level, that is the first time buyer or the first time user. The second is the medium truck operators, and then the fleet operators. The selection criteria varies from category to category. Basically at the entry level, we look at his experience in operating the vehicle either as a driver or as what you call a single truck operator. We look at how he is going to ply this vehicle and from where he is going to get the orders. Normally, loan to value ratio will be pretty low for such entry type of customers, because we depend on these customers bringing in more of their funds so that he runs this vehicle successfully. In terms of medium truck operators, we look at their repayment track record more and how often have they replenished their purchases. If he is going to expand his fleet aggressively and then he is coming to us, we don't entertain such customers. So we look at the gap between the purchases he has made, and number 2, what sort of vehicles is he operating? Whether is he buying vehicles in relation to his experience, or is he buying just because somebody has promised him some orders? So we go into the background of his purchase. In a fleet operator, we look more at his fleet free to hypothecated ratio. more the free vehicles, more will be our desire to fund them, and the vice versa. We also look at which industry he is going to ply these vehicles. We are ultimately concerned about where he is going to operate. See, as you know, trucks are earn and pay. So the more you earn, the better is your payment towards your financial commitments. So we look at where he is going to deploy, whether the industry has got any downturn or whether the industry is in a booming industry. So we look at whether he is in a capacity to get the money from his principals and then consequently pay us on time. These are the basic classifications in terms of evaluation.
Though it's a relatively new sector, problems have already started creeping in, with many borrowers failing to repay the bank, as in many cases the business is directly impacted by the freight trade in India, which is itself going through a tough period. Initially, the financial institutions were quite stringent about the repayment policy. But over the years, they have started understanding the problems of the borrowers and have started adopting other more customer-friendly policies.
Right now, if you look at it, it's more of collections. We are sandwiched between whether to take the vehicle away from him or allow him to pay. So the time given to these people right now is going to be very crucial. Not all are bad. There are a few customers who are going through a downturn because of the economic situations. So we have to identify that particular mass and give them the time or the breather for them to pay. It could be either in the form of rescheduling the contracts, extending it for a longer period, or ask them to pay some payment, bulk payment now, and then close the contract and refinance it for a further period of 2 years or 3 years. Of course, keeping in mind the resale price of the vehicle at the end of the contract tenure. So you will have to clearly distinguish between the good, bad and the ugly, and then use the right technique for these people. But right now, all of us are faced with one major problem: who to trust, whom not to trust. So the ability to distinguish these three type of customers will eventually, pull out the winner among the NBFCs or the private sector banks.
These are all collateral backed lending. So I think one of the most important criteria is the resale price. Okay, and in the current scenario where the demand is low, the demand for vehicle operation is low, cost of operations are high, and normally one would see the resale price dipping. Now, it's a very hard decision for one to make. Is this the right time to repossess vehicle if somebody defaults? Because if you were to repossess, is there an adequate demand for a second-hand vehicle or a correct resale price? If not, you're going to book loss, right? So one of the decision making is very difficult currently. I think two is when we lend or when we have given away the money, let's say 6 months back, 1 year back, the overall viability was very different. Now the cost of operations have gone up, the fuel prices are going up, and the transit loads are inadequate. So I think the cash flows of the operators are suffering. So if somebody is a very focused commercial vehicle financier who only has commercial vehicle as a larger portfolio, has a huge pressure at this stage of customer not able to pay on time. So one of the challenges is to start identifying very clearly between intentional defaulters versus circumstantial defaulters, right? And which is where comes the operator's experience and how long he has been in the business, and therefore you're willing to work with him and give him more time.
The future of road transportation in India is looking bright, with huge investments being made in road infrastructure by the Government of India. This, coupled with the advent of new age commercial vehicles, will give a huge boost to the demand of commercial vehicle loans, thus ensuring steady growth for the commercial vehicle financiers.
Next 10 years, any economy, transport is going to be the barometer of the particular economy. And more so when there are more infrastructure projects which we expect in this country, definitely there will be an upward trend in the business. So we expect more projects in the terms of metro rail or irrigation projects or dam construction, which will in turn provide a fillip to the transport industry. All depends upon the government coming up with attractive projects. But transport is here to stay. It is here for good. And in this country, transport is a main system where all our livelihood depends on. Either it's goods or people. We either depend on a bus to move or a lorry to transport a vehicle. that's going to be here for long.
It's time now for a short break, but on the other side we focus on some key components of the transport ecosystem. Welcome back. You are watching Reshaping the Transport Industry. There are some components of the transport ecosystem which are extremely vital to its existence. These are the fleet drivers, highway mechanics and highway dhabas.
स्टीयरिंग भी साहब बढ़िया है, सीट भी इसका बढ़िया दिया है गाड़ी, केबिन सबसे अच्छा है साहब इसका कि बहुत ड्राइवर के लिए आरामदेह बहुत गाड़ी।
Transportation and truck drivers, the vital units which support business, are the proverbial backbone of the Indian logistics industry. In the past, most transport companies have had an abundance of good drivers, but the story has taken a bad turn. Today, the biggest hindrance for the transport companies is the lack of good quality drivers.
गाड़ी में 12 साल से चला रहा हूँ और बहुत दूर दूर जा चुका हूँ, जैसे कन्याकुमारी हो गया, मदुरई हुआ,
I have been driving trucks for 12 years and have traveled to many parts of the country. The problems that we face on the road are road taxes, tire withering, bad food, diesel theft and lack of sleep.
गाड़ी को चलाते हैं और जो है कि जैसा रोड टूटा हुआ है तो हिसाब से गियर में चलता है, टायर का बचत, हर चीज़ का बचत, मतलब ये सब मुश्किलों का सामना करके तब कन्याकुमारी पहुँचते हैं हम लोग गाड़ी को। खाना पीना खाते पीते, मतलब कहीं मिलता है खाना कायदे का भी मिलता है, नहीं भी मिलता है कायदे खाना, सो पाते हैं, अगर कहीं सो दिए तो कहीं डीजल का टेंशन आता है, इसका टेंशन आता है, मतलब बहुत सारी दिक्कत आती है।
The major challenges today in this industry is basically the drivers. The driver part is the major challenge, which we are now streamlining. We are trying to bring in new ways and methods where we can capture their data and analyze what they are doing. So that is the most grey area here. The driver issues are the main areas, because today if you see the vehicles have all improved. I mean the technologies have improved, vehicles efficiencies have improved. So the industry as such is growing. I mean, but the real challenge is how we maintain these drivers and how we, educate them, how we, how we get them to do things. That is the main challenge here today.
Slowly but steadily, transporters are becoming aware of this problem and have introduced many new schemes, training exercises and incentive policies for the development of drivers. Such practices will definitely boost their morals and motivate them to perform better and attract more people to take up driving as a career. Highways are the lifeline of the road transport system, and what keeps them running are two integral components of the transport ecosystem. They are the highway mechanics and highway dhabas. While one is the support system for the trucks, the latter serves as the sole source of nourishment for the truck drivers on highways.
See, India is a very fragmented truck market. So you will not always get organized hotel chains and service centers to service you. And because the nature of the animal, the truck, is so primitive, it will keep breaking down. There aren't proper maintenance practices followed. The age of the trucks is quite a lot. You need these small-scale intermediaries to help you keep the truck up and running.
They are very, very critical elements. Like one takes care of the health of the vehicle. The other one ensures that the man at the wheel is well fed, so that he is able to steer the vehicle properly.
The highway mechanics have been the only source of servicing for the truckers on the highways, but lately they have also started facing a lot of challenges due to the new technologies which are being adopted by the commercial vehicle manufacturing companies.
मैं 30 साल से काम कर रहा हूँ मैकेनिकल पिच पे जो परेशानियाँ आ रही हैं जो आम मैकेनिक काम कर रहे हैं
I have been a mechanic for 30 years. The problem which we are facing today is the new technology that is being used in the newer vehicles, as we are not trained for that.
तो इनकी सही ट्रेनिंग देना चाहिए, उनको ट्रेन करने उनको सर्टिफिकेट देना चाहिए, ताकि टेक्निकल इतना आगे बढ़ चुका है कि आगे जो है इन गाड़ियों का काम कर नहीं पा रहे हैं लोग, वो बच्चे पीछे चले जाते हैं, लाइफ बेकार हो जाती है.
I think the challenges are as technology on the trucks keeps on going up higher and higher, they will need to upgrade their own skills. They'll have to broaden their vision, because right now most of the trucks sold in India were basically a throwback to the 50s or early 60s. All of a sudden in the last 10 years you have got a mushrooming of big technology mandated by the legislation, as at least for emissions and all that. So in that, I don't think that most of the roadside mechanics have really imbibed this technology or the sophistication of the technology. That will be the biggest challenge, both for themselves and also for the truckers who operate those vehicles.
The times are tough for the transport industry with the overall economic slump across the world. But the huge internal demand that India generates due to its large population will help this sector to come out of the slump in no time, thus in turn helping the highway mechanics and dhabas also to further grow their businesses in the years to come.
I see their business growing, I see their numbers growing also, because more and more people are getting into this, and the more help points we have, either as dhabas or mechanics, it's going to help because the truck population is increasing. So numbers will keep growing, and as the numbers grow, the facilities will keep growing.
With that, we have come to the end of the feature series called Reshaping the Transport Industry, where we focused on 6 key segments of the transport ecosystem. Next week, do catch the curtain raiser to the awards this year. Till then, goodbye.